Have you ever wondered how some people make eating healthy, exercise, and managing stress look so easy? You can too. Welcome to Wellness Wisdom, where we uncover the secrets to lasting health and happiness and empower you to make wise health choices, see results, and create a healthy lifestyle for good. Join Camille Kennard, licensed social worker, certified health and wellness coach, a self-care specialist on the journey to explore how to make health and well-being possible for you. It's a health and wellness journey you can take together. Please welcome your host, Camille Kennard.
You know, I am so happy, everybody, to welcome you to Wellness Wisdom today. It's July. This month really makes me think about the freedoms that we have in the United States and just really celebrating freedom, what that means to us, you know, that we're not imprisoned by something. And the month of July, Flourish Wellness, we're going to focus on how can we get more freedom from limiting beliefs? What is it that limits us? Like, I think maybe I'll never lose weight, or I'm not as pretty as other people, or these beliefs that we have that just kind of hold us back. And you guys are going to love our episode today. It's going to be so powerful. So get ready. Hold on tight. I have a great friend of mine and a wonderful person. She's an amazing business owner and human being, and I'm really happy to have her on my podcast, and it's Lark Galley. Lark, thanks for being here.
Sure, thank you. I'm excited to share my message.
Yes, I'm excited to have you share the message. So it's kind of interesting. Lark and I met several years ago. She's actually one of the people that propelled me into being a little bit larger in my business and getting out there into the networking world and talking to other people. But she has an amazing story to tell us, and it is a story that I feel very strongly about as a mental health therapist for many years, is really talking about mental health and wellness in that aspect. And we're going to go quite a bit into that today, and she will tell you a little bit of her story. But I just want to introduce you guys to Lark. She has spent 25 years, you know, in the business world. She's worked for other companies. She was a global sales rep for a Fortune 500 company. She's a graduate of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. She just has a lot of experience with running her own business. You know, her thing is kind of making sales and everything a lot more smooth and easy, so you have time freedom, right? And money freedom. And we're going to talk today about mental health freedom. And it's kind of interesting, Lark, how all those three things come into play with your latest changes in your life. She's had a lot of success in her business and sales, but she says she also questioned many times her value and her ability to accomplish her goals. We probably have all been there, right? And she has coached a lot of high achievers, and she's realized that a lot of people question their value. And after her son's suicide, it created a deep desire in her to help others raise their value and find balance and fulfillment in all areas of their life. I think that's such a moving thing to think about, is that so many of us question, am I worth it? Am I valuable? Am I important in my life? Lark, this was just a few months ago. You've been a woman in business who's been helping other people, but this was just a few months ago that you experienced your own tragedy of having your son commit suicide. Can you tell us a little bit about that whole journey? What happened, where you were at with things?
Sure. So to preface this, you know, my son was a difficult child for me to raise. He was 19 years old at the time, and he was a freshman at the University of Utah, living at home. He was in mechanical engineering, which was his dream and passion. He had friends and hobbies and everything to look forward to. He was brilliant, which is part of the reason why he and I always butted heads, because he felt, you know, he always knew more or better than mom. I mean, this is a 19-year journey for me of trying to parent a child that things didn't always go well, and yet really trying to stay engaged and help this boy, you know, do as well as he could in life. And then being very engaged in business activities. I own my own business, both a trucking company as well as business coaching, and hearing this repeated theme come up about value, questioning their value, even though they're very high achievers. And my son just felt like things were going well in his life. He had a few things that happened. You know, he'd been in a car accident, or, you know, not bad, but just a car accident that he would have had to come out of pocket with a deductible. And then he had 2 prior speeding tickets, as many 19-year-old boys are wont to do. And that was going to end up having him lose his license, and then his grades had started slipping, and I think felt he was disappointing his father. So as an adult, we can look at these things and say, it's not the end of the world. It will be okay. Take it day by day. But when you're 19, your brain isn't developed. It's the end of the world. And, I'm just going to be done.
Yeah, I think as you're talking about, I'm thinking about the kids that I've worked with as a mental health therapist, and how those fears, those disappointments, those challenges that happen in life can often lead you to feeling hopeless, right? Or that there's not a way out, that stress of, I owe money, or whatever it is that's coming up for these kids, school, whatever it is that's stressful for them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And like I said, we had no clue. And it was only through going back over this. This happened back in March of 2019. So like you said, not that long ago. It was only back talking with different therapists and trying to figure out what was going on, what the journey was. And I realized that 3.5 years prior to this, he had expressed some suicidal thoughts, and we got him into the therapist the next day. I mean, I was there with him, and it turned out that, he felt he needed to express to mom and dad things like, Mom, I don't believe in God. I believe in science. And I'm like,
yeah.
Done whatever you need to do. I think he was expecting me to react very negatively and tell him that, no, you will believe in God. And I'm like, I can't make you believe in anything. So, you run with that. And then several months with the therapist, and he mentioned to her, he did have a plan to kill himself. Right. And like I said before, he was very brilliant. He could have done it in 100 different ways. And yet we went through that process every week. I was there with him at the therapist. He was able to move through that, we thought, and do better and feel better. Well, and like I said, so for the next 3.5 years, he seemed fine. Well, what I found out from a therapist recently is that it's not so much a decision for suicide. It's a journey. And people start out and they go in this really dark place and they hurt. It's like a physical pain, and they're hurting so bad. They just want to stop the pain. And I know I've been in that place before where it just hurts so bad. You do anything to stop the pain. And so that's where they start their journey. And then they start to think of ways, I can commit suicide and the pain will end. And then once they kind of come up with a plan, and they're horrified at first, which is why they don't want to talk to anybody else about it, because they don't want to horrify anybody else by saying, hey, I'm suicidal. So they don't talk about it, but they have a plan. And so we see these people that are depressed and suddenly they're happy and they're fine. Like my son was for, those 3 years, happy and fine, because he had a plan. And he realized that, hey, got that plan in my back pocket.
There was a way out.
Yeah, it's a way out. And so that's something to be really conscientious of, is, to see these drastic changes in people if they're super depressed and then they're suddenly, hey, things are good. Mm-hmm. That's a signal.
Yeah, that can be one of the big warning signs, isn't it? Of they are feeling so much better. This is such a sensitive subject, I know, for so many people, but it's a subject that I am really passionate about, and I know you are extremely passionate about, is how do we help build mental wellness in people? What did you see? A lot of times, like you've said, the stigma, and that was hard for you. You didn't really want to speak out about it at first because you thought, well, there's this judgment. People might be judging me. What did I do wrong as a parent, or things like that? Can you talk a little bit about what your internal struggles were with that?
Sure, absolutely. So he passed away on a Thursday, and then my husband, who is a battle-hardened Army colonel, just broke down. He doesn't even remember the 3 days. He just broke down and was devastated. Mm-hmm. And I was having to deal with, okay, let's put together the funeral arrangements. Let's, bring the other children home, and all the coordination on the logistics, and just trying to manage, the police coming in and the bio cleanup and all of these things, that the logistical, and it's such an emotional topic. And so that was on Thursday. And then finally by Saturday, I felt, okay, I can at least post on social media, hey, my son passed away. And that was it. There was no way I was going to talk about suicide or anything that happened, because I thought people are going to judge me. They're going to say, oh, she's a terrible mom. What did she do? Or what was the problem? And the stigma around suicide and mental, the mental health thing. And it brought back memories from the 5.5 years earlier where my father committed suicide. And he was initially in a car accident, and that's where I leave it. But what happened was he was in a car accident, was kind of the last straw, and he was bipolar and experiencing mental wellness issues. And he just pulled out his gun right there and shot himself in the car. And it was so traumatic for me that I couldn't talk about it. So it was like for 5 months, I went into this dark hole. I had to start taking over his business and figuring things out. And I don't remember how my kids got fed. I don't remember what I did day to day. It's like a black hole. And I think that because I wasn't willing to talk about the reality and what happened, I just went into a denial, a place of denial. Well, I kind of did the same thing with my son. And that Saturday I posted, hey, he passed away, and people made, oh, I'm so sorry. And, somebody said, well, it sounds like it, he's kind of like my brother in that he had some depression. And I didn't really respond about that. I just wasn't going to go down there. But in my mind, he didn't seem like he was depressed, right? He showed no signs of depression, almost the opposite, right? Almost too happy.
Yeah.
And then finally, all of my friends, the many, many moms reached out to me. These were moms of children who knew my son. And one mom said, my daughter attempted to take her life a year ago by taking this bottle of pills, and she had to have her stomach pumped. She had to be in the hospital for a week. Another mom whose child knows my son said, hey, my son's already been struggling, and now this news is just like tipped him over the edge, and he can barely function. And then another mom reached out to me, and her son was away at school in a different state. She had to bring him home because they were such close friends. She had to bring this boy home so that he wouldn't attempt while they were, separated out like that. And so there were multiple others that talked to me. And so over the next few days, they're reaching out to me, and I'm thinking about this, and it's going around in my head and my heart. And I'm thinking, I can't change what my son did. I can't change if another child chooses to take their life. The only thing I can change is if I'm willing to talk about it. And if a child takes their life because I didn't talk about it, then that's my responsibility. And I couldn't live with that. And so that's when on Tuesday, not even a week after my son passed away, I made a decision, which is how I've been able to cope through this. I decided that something good was going to come out of this terrible event that would help other people. And so I posted, about my son's suicide. I posted that other moms had been calling me and contacting me. I said to the parents, it doesn't matter what your child says, what they do, you have got the responsibility to tell them that you love them and accept them no matter what. That's our responsibility as parents, kind of like I did with my son. Mom, I don't believe in God. Son, that's great. Good for you. Right.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's totally different.
Love you, whatever you choose. Yeah,
exactly. And then, for those who struggle, they have to understand that, yes, I understand there's pain, but there are ways that we can work with that and manage that pain. And just because you decide to die, that pain isn't going away. It's just transferred from you to hundreds of other people. And now I'm dealing with the pain. My husband, my son, and my two daughters, the other son, and we're all dealing with it. All his friends are dealing with it. The teachers at the university where he was studying, one student said that the professor just broke down and cried in class. And this ripple effect has gone out. And I explained about that. And I just said, please, this is not the answer. And then I called those moms back. And I said, please read this post with your child, because, younger kids aren't necessarily on Facebook or my friend or whatever on Facebook. So they read it to their children. And I know that it actually changed a couple of their lives, those kids' lives. And it just moved me, because I felt I want to help these children who are struggling. So
thank you so much for sharing that, something that is so close to your heart. And I know something that has been so difficult, and you've made this into the message that you're going out in the world and telling which is, I feel, is such an important message. Here in Utah, we've had several suicides in a few of our high schools, upwards of 5, 6 kids who ended up, taking their own lives. And we've talked a lot in the mental health profession about what can we do, and how can we help these kids feel supported and help them, make it through suffering. And like you say, that pain or that suffering, working with the teens I work with, that doesn't last forever. It might feel like the wave of the ocean is going to come and crash down on you, and you just want to be done, but it doesn't feel like that forever. And I think what you're talking about and your message out there to people is of hope, and that you matter so much. You think about your son's life and how many people he impacted. I mean, you just think of the teachers and the friends and the students and the, family members and all of that each of our lives has a value that cannot be put into a number, right? We're just so much of value. And all of us get those moments or those times where we think, is it worth it? This is so hard. I can't do this anymore. And for us to get together as a community, I have loved what you have been posting and talking about, which is, let's open up a dialogue. Let's just talk about, do you feel like you're going to want to kill yourself? Do you want to kill yourself? Is there something that you're feeling that makes you want to just end this all? Because I think for so long people have thought, and I've had that people ask me this, if you ask someone about killing themselves, is it going to make them want to do that? And I say, no, it's going to open the conversation. It's going to help them feel connected. And I think that's one of the biggest things, that people feel disconnected. They feel alone. They feel like they're the only one that's going through what they're going through. And so I love your conversation with let's just open this up. Let's just start really having a conversation and talking about this.
Right. And that's what I learned from the therapist, is that these people that are experiencing this depression, they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to horrify others. But if we, who maybe aren't in that situation right away, if we can talk to others and say that, are you thinking of hurting yourself? Are you thinking of killing yourself? Are you thinking of suicide? If we use these words, then they feel able to use the words as well. And then we can start a dialogue. And that's the whole thing, is like, let's talk about it, because the more I post, the more people respond to me. And it's not necessarily on the feed, it's personal, private messages.
Mm-hmm.
One friend said, I attempted back earlier this year, and she was in the hospital for a week. I didn't even know this. And then another one said, I have depression and suicidal thoughts all the time. So many people are reaching out and saying that same message, and they're feeling safe that they can share that with me, which I am grateful for. And we start to talk about some things that they can do. And because I've made it safe to talk about, they're willing to talk about it.
I love that. And also that you as a mother of someone who was struggling with that depression, you get it on a different level, right, than other people may. You really understand that. So I want to know what you are talking to parents about. Like, what did you experience? It sounds like there was some of that at first shame and stigma, but what did you experience? And then what are you talking to parents about now?
So number one, love them. That's my new message, is just love and accept them, your children, other people. Just let's be kinder. That's, just be kinder and more loving and accepting. Just because somebody believes something doesn't mean that you have to believe it, but we can still be kind, right? That's my big thing. And I had read this book a couple weeks before my son passed away. And it really emphasized that, just love and accept other people for just where they are. And as I mentioned, my son and I, we just like butted heads our whole lives and tried to, help him. And he didn't want the help. And we went out to dinner and we were able to talk for an hour. And he hadn't been willing to talk to me in the past, really, 1 or 2 sentences. He talked for an hour. I couldn't believe he had that much to say. And we talked about, parenting and what he wanted to do and all of this. And I said, son, Mom and Dad, maybe we didn't get it right every time, but we tried to do the very best we could with what we had. And so we had this open conversation. And I said, is there anything you would like to change, with our family style or the rules? Let's talk about that. And so he told me a few things, and I went home and talked to my husband and said, maybe we can change some stuff. And so we made some changes with some family rules that gave him more autonomy. And I told him about it, and he kissed me on the cheek. And he said, thank you, because I felt like he felt he could be his own person. And that happened 2 weeks before he died.
Wow.
And how grateful I am that we were moving towards a better place than that. Our relationship was in a really bad place. Do you know what I mean? Think about that.
Yeah.
If you're the last thing you say to someone, is that the last thing forever you want them to have on their mind? And I think about that a lot, with my father passing away, now with my son. What are the last words somebody would hear from you?
Yeah.
It's critical, right?
I love that. And just loving them for who they are and listening. That's a big thing. And all the teens and the kids that I've worked with is working with the parents on, you know what, you may not get where your kids are coming from. They're going through different things than you did as a kid, but just listen, just try to listen and give them that space to express what's going on inside of them. Oh, I think that's so important.
And one more thing, parents say, well, how can I connect with my child? They don't understand me. I don't understand them. What are they interested in? Find out if they love soccer, you love soccer,
Yeah.
If they love robotics or cheer or whatever they love, you love it too.
Yeah, I think that's so important because for any of us as humans, we want to feel, again, valued. If you listen to me about what I love, then I feel valued, and that's, I think, such an important thing for these kids is to really feel like someone's on their team and someone values them, whatever they like. If it's video games, or I've talked to many kids about Minecraft and all these, things that I don't know anything about and are not a passion for me, but I'm learning, about them. So I love that. And, that we can just all be a little bit kinder to each other, in learning about, I'm doing a teen meditation and mindfulness group, and we're talking a lot about loving kindness, kindness towards ourselves and others. I don't think I told you that I had a client who was 28 years old, who actually ended his life about 2 years ago. And I wasn't his therapist anymore. I had referred him to more extensive therapy. But I remember getting that phone call from his mother, who had gone through his cell phone and looked up, because I'd sent him a text saying, how are you doing, kind of a thing. And I remember her calling me, and I remember that feeling in my gut and my stomach. And then I went through this grieving process myself, of feeling sad and crying and, thinking about what his life meant to me as an amazing person that he was. And then as I was, kind of going through my own grieving process, I decided to look up his obituary and kind of read through that. And in his obituary, his family was amazing. They said, his life is helping us all to learn how to be kinder to ourselves.
Exactly.
And I thought that was a really amazing way to bring something positive out of that let's be kind to ourselves, because he was struggling so much with an internal hatred for himself that actually propelled him to end his life. So, yeah.
And that's what I see so much, the value, if my son had felt his value, he wouldn't have done that. If your client had felt his value, he wouldn't have done that. We all experience that at different levels. And just to be kind to ourselves, kind to other people, know that we matter. I know that for me, I've had 2 different mentors in my life who have made a huge difference for me. And yet at times earlier in their lives, they had both struggled with depression, and they both considered suicide. I mean, they were, that was an option for them. And I look at that and I think, if they had gone through with it, they would not have been in my life years later and affected me on the level that they've helped me. And I tell people, just like you have somebody in your life that had made a difference for you, and if they hadn't been there, it would have profoundly affected you and not being able to help you. You're that person for someone else. And if you're not around, you're not going to be able to help them. They need you.
I think that's so important. As you're talking, I was thinking about how we could all also talk more about what we appreciate about each other, right? And really bring that out. I know when I was struggling in my business, which all of us in business, sometimes we feel like, I'm just going to be done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. I had someone say to me, why don't you look at the people you've influenced, right? If they've written a letter to you, if they've said something positive to you, just really focusing on, this person that said, Camille, you made a huge difference. You made a change. You helped me change my life. Then it's like, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I'm, here on this earth. There's people that I'm affecting, and it affects that self-efficacy, right? Our feeling of worth, our self-worth. Yeah.
Right. Because I think we all want to feel like we're making a difference in some way, that we matter, that we're important. And I know for me, I haven't always been an emotionally demonstrative person, like, oh, we don't need to hug. We don't need to, like all that touchy thing. And now I'm like, let's hug everybody. And, I'm a lot quicker with the compliments and to tell people what I really enjoy. Because if you feel something about someone else, let them know. I'm sure they appreciate it. And let that be natural and a part of you, so that you don't leave a situation with things unsaid about how wonderful they are and how much difference they've made in your life. And that's going to help you feel more gratitude and be appreciative for what comes into your life. And it's just this cycle, and let's just be nice.
Yeah. So can you tell me, before we go on to kind of our next section of like what you're doing now, and, I know you've come up with some programs and different things that you're doing to help people with that emotional well-being, and which we all, just like we have to physically eat good and exercise to feel good, we have to take care of our mental health. I feel like mental health is kind of the foundation of all health, because what we believe has a really strong impact on us. What else did you, I know you said you questioned your value at one point. How did you work through that? What was that like for you?
Well, I remember, being in corporate America, and everything was, the value to me was my paycheck. What did I bring home? How much money was it? And it had to be more and more and more. And I was very, very successful at corporate America. And at some point I realized that I'm missing out on my family's life. My kids were getting a little bit older, and I needed to make some changes, because really what's most important. And so that's when I left corporate America, started my own business, and had more flexibility to be with my family. But what I found during this, before I left, I was like, I was always busy at work producing. And then when I came home, I felt like I had to be doing chores or doing something that was bringing some kind of value in whatever I did. And I could never rest. And it was a process over several years, realizing that my value wasn't outside myself. It wasn't a paycheck. It wasn't, oh, are the dishes done? Is the house tidy? Is it perfect? My value was inside myself, and it already existed. It existed from the moment I was born. And I didn't have to do anything to have that value there. If you think of a baby that you love, that's the cutest baby in the world. That baby doesn't do anything. In fact, that baby causes like a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
But you love that baby. That baby didn't do anything to bring value in that sense, other than they just showed up with who they were, and you loved them. That's who we are. We just need to show up in knowing that we have value, and we bring joy, and there we are. No matter what we produce outside ourselves. And once you know inside that you matter and you bring value just because you showed up, then we can do, external things. But our value isn't tied to the external things. It's tied to the knowingness that we matter. I look at my son, like I said, he literally was brilliant. The fact that the whole house and the family survived and the house is still standing is incredible, because the boy set off rockets in the house. He made homemade bombs. There were explosions in the backyard.
Oh, wow.
I came home one day, drove into the garage to see him. He had made a homemade flamethrower.
Oh, wow.
And he was hooking it up to the propane tank.
Oh my gosh.
So, I can't tell you as a mother.
A scientist.
So these things, and he was just so creative and experimenting. And I know that he could have done wonderful things. He could have changed the world. And I'll tell you some things that happened, like at the viewing and at the funeral, the different people that came. One was one of his teachers from high school that came, and I had been in several parent-teacher conferences with him. And we had a chance to talk for a minute. And I'm like, did you see any signs? Because I know I didn't. And he said, I have the opportunity to deal with hundreds of kids every day. I can tell the kids that have problems at home and the kids that don't. And he said, your family, I could tell he had a solid, supportive family. He said, I didn't see anything from that end. So that made me feel better, because I'm like, I didn't see anything, what more could I have done? And then there were kids from the university. Several came from there. They were freshmen in his classes. And this is what they said, like he was staying late at the labs up there and the tutoring labs because it wasn't so much that he was getting help for himself. He was helping them with their studies, their engineering classes, their math. I mean, he didn't share that with us, right? And this one boy came and he was with two other students from the university, and the boy could barely talk. He was so moved. And the other student that was with him, she said, he's from Illinois. He just moved out here, 6 months ago. He started school. He's a freshman. And the boy said, my son Christian, his name's Christian. Christian was my first friend. And he started to cry. And I thought, this is a different picture of my sweet boy, that he helped, he reached out. That made me feel better to know that he was trying to be a good person and love and help other people. And a lot of times it's the people that are hurting the most that want to help and give the most, right?
Oh, that's so amazing, to kind of know from so many different people what an impact he made in their lives. I think that's, one of those gifts that you got through this journey. I love that you mentioned our value is not connected to anything. It simply is, and I teach people a lot about being a human being rather than a human doing. Because we tend to think if I do more, we always in business, are you busy? Oh, yep, I'm busy. So that's good, right? Instead of it just being, you have value just by being you, and your son giving value to people by being himself and who he was. I think that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing something so personal and you're passionate about it. I think this is going to really impact a lot of people, and I hope people are listening to this with their kids and really having those conversations that can help open up all of us to talking more about mental health. Okay, we're going to take a little break, but when we get back, I would love for you to talk a little bit more about now what you're doing. I know you've been speaking a lot, kind of what your message is that you're sending out into the world, and some of the things that you're doing to really make a difference based on what you went through and what your family has been through, and then your son's life, and all of that. So we'll just take a quick break and then we'll kind of chat about that.
Have you ever had one of those days when you feel like you can't keep doing it all? When you feel like the demands of work, family, and life are just too much? Are you trying to make others happy, but you are miserable? Do you feel like your brain is constantly in a fog? Do you worry all the time and can't shut your brain off? Do you wish you had more time for yourself? Do you want to find more stillness and quiet your mind? Many women feel overwhelmed and stressed with the demands of family, work, and other responsibilities. It can literally push them over the edge. What if you could have a weekend away to dedicate to you, to your well-being and self-care, to eat healthy food, practice invigorating yoga, get calming massages, and spend time in quiet meditation with nature? Join Flourish Wellness for our Mindfulness in the Mountains wellness retreat in the beautiful mountains of Eden, Utah. Learn to quiet the mind and to listen to your body and fill your soul with self-love and acceptance. Register now. Space is limited. To check out the cabin and accommodations and to register, go to flourishwellnessconsulting.com under live events or email Camille at flourishwellnessconsulting.com. This fall, make yourself a priority and learn to make peace with your body and like who you are for good.
Welcome back, everybody, to Wellness Wisdom. This is a conversation that I hope you guys can sit down and listen to this podcast with your family, because it's opening up something that I feel like has been a taboo subject for too many years, that we really need to talk about, because to me, it's the foundation of all health. It is our mental health, and that we all struggle. We all have bad days, and some people are dealing with some serious depression that is an illness. It's an illness that they're dealing with that we need to be able to know how to handle and what to say and how to help people. I have Lark Galley with me today, and she's an amazing woman, and I'm so happy that she has opened up to talk about her conversation, her journey of losing her son to suicide just a few months ago. It hasn't been that long at all. And kind of what she has made her mission in life now is to talk about this and to open up this conversation. Lark, before the break, I asked if you would kind of talk a little bit more about, what you've decided to do and where you're going now with what you want to teach and help people with.
Sure. So after my son's suicide and I finally started posting on social media, which is not something I thought I would do because of the stigma and the shame and all of that. And I just said, I need to get over this. This is not about me. This is not, was she a good parent? Or, what problems was her son having, any of that? It's about helping the rest of the world, helping the other kids that might be thinking about this. So I started doing research, and I found out, I had heard that there had been suicides at the different high schools and all of that. But I found out it's the number one killer of the youth in Utah.
Yeah.
I'm a parent. Why didn't I know that? I mean, we'd had conversations with our son years earlier, thought he was fine. Why isn't it all over the news or the media, or why aren't people talking about it? We talk about, okay, kids, be safe, be careful. You're driving a car or you're walking alone at night or wherever, stranger danger, all of these things, right? If we knew that this was the number one killer, why aren't we talking about it? And so I just decided I'm going to start talking about it. And I talk about it everywhere, to the point where my family's like, okay, could we stop talking about it?
Yeah.
But I'm like, no.
It's emotional.
Yes. And I honestly feel like this is a mission that is now handed to me. Like I mentioned before, my relationship with my son, it was rough. It was difficult. And I really do feel closer to him now than I did when he was alive. And I feel that way because I feel that he wants this message to be put out there and to be talked about. And I feel that he's helping me and wants people to know that this really is not an option. Stay in the game, right? We can make it work. And so I created this emotional self-reliance course. Somebody asked me to put it together. And I like I mentioned before, I'm not really touchy-feely and I don't do anything with emotion, but I had to look it up. I'm like, what the heck is it? I don't know.
Awesome. Now you're in my world.
I'm like, okay, I know what self-reliance is, about money and education and all of that. But emotional self-reliance, just having the reservoir of the capacity that when people say things to you that you don't have to take them on, or when rough things happen, you have enough capacity there to make it through, because we're all going to have difficult times. That's called life.
Mm-hmm.
And so just building up those reservoirs. And then, like you mentioned, I'm speaking more. And then I just reached out and said, how can I get my message out there? Oh, I'm going to ask other people if I can be on their podcast, which is why I approached you. This is important to me. And so many people have been responding positively and saying, yes, please, let's get your message out there. And the more we can talk about it, the better it is. And I feel like I'm supposed to write a book about this whole thing. So I said, okay, I will write a book. So I was able to outline that book in 10 minutes. I mean, who does that, right?
Right.
And just like, I feel that this is a mission that I need to do to make a change in the world. And that's how this event is not going to be in vain. It's not going to be, the defining moment of my life that, now I can't cope anymore. It's going to be the defining moment that I can make a difference in the world. That's the way I've decided about it.
Oh, I love that. And what a powerful thing to teach emotional self-reliance. When I teach a lot of people about resilience, right? That we can bounce back from things that happen to us, but also that you emotionally can learn how to be reliant on yourself, right? And learn how to have your own ways of coping with difficult things that we all have. And helping people to decide to stay in the game. I love that. Just even that thought of like, this is a game and we might get beat down several times. Maybe you're that one that's running for the ball and you get thrown down, and just that life has those things, and to expect that. And I love that. And, a lot of what I teach is just helping people really tune into themselves and love themselves and be mindful of what they say to themselves, right? If we're saying all these negative things to ourselves, like you can't do it, you're not enough, all of that, that's what we create more of. So in your emotional self-reliance, I know we want people to be able to go and get that, but what are some of the basic things that you kind of talk about in there?
So the first module is all about how we have to take responsibility for our own emotions. Get rid of the blame, where nobody else is responsible for us. Because what happens is if we say, oh, you made me do that, or you made me mad, you made me feel this way, then we're giving them our power. And if we give away our power and blame them for when something difficult happens, then we can't empower ourselves to make something good happen. We're always saying, oh, it's on somebody else. It's somebody else's responsibility. And so I talk about, we're responsible for our own happiness, not our spouse or our parents or our best friend. It's us. And we need to find what that happiness looks like. And then I talk about another module talks about, okay, so now we have to allow other people to be responsible for their emotions, which, they want to blame us for their emotions.
Yeah.
Or teaching them, these skills of no, actually you're responsible and you made this choice, doing that. And then learning how to get along with other people. How can we do that? How can we avoid conflict? We disagree probably, but how can we avoid conflict? What can we do about that? So just different skills and being made aware, because, we're taught from little kids, you always hear this, oh, you made me so mad. And we don't address that. That's not logical. It's not true.
I love that. And that, something I believe in, and I've had a couple people on my podcast to talk about, that happiness is a skill. So even if you're listening to this and you're thinking, but my life is crappy and there's nothing to look forward to and there's nothing I like, is that you can learn the skill of happiness. And I love that you use the word empower, right? If I feel like a victim, that's a miserable place to be, that everybody else is causing things to be horrible in my life. But if I feel empowered, like I can make this happen, I can feel better, I can, get through this class or this thing or this, financial struggle, whatever it is, it's empowering, to feel that way. I love that. And then I think that what you're talking about with the allowing others to do their thing is kind of like you have boundaries, right? That that they do their thing and you do your thing. And yes, it affects us, but also recognizing that we all have stories we tell. So, if someone tells me, Camille, you're no good at your podcast, what story am I telling from that, right? Am I saying, oh, that's true? Or am I saying, oh, that's their opinion, kind of a thing, right? And it's this ability to bounce back and be resilient to what's going on around us as well, because people have their own stories. They're walking around in the world with these different stories, right? So,
and a lot of times what other people say to us negatively is their story.
Yep.
They're just telling you their story. And so sometimes, when people complain or they might say something snarky to me or whatever, I think to myself, oh my goodness, that person just opened up and told me their deepest, darkest fear. And if we understood that we're just throwing out the crap that's inside us and what we fear, we wouldn't talk about it as much, right? We wouldn't blame or point fingers at other people.
Yeah, I love that. And that ultimately, I love your message of we can all, whether we see things the same, we don't. There's a diversity around us that's amazing, and that doesn't mean we need to have conflict. The history of this world has been, when people disagree, there's a conflict, instead of it being, what? We can still be peaceful. We can still look for the good. We can still make the best of whatever the situation is that we're in without having to have, those negative feelings eat at us, kind of a thing.
Exactly.
I love that. So this is exciting. I love what you're doing. I think it's amazing. Taking something that was a tragedy and a very difficult thing for you and your family, and that your son went through, thinking about the suffering that he had and the things that he went through, and turning it into a way to teach others this emotional vocabulary, this emotional self-reliance, how to help yourself emotionally handle life, because it's not easy. It can be hard. Is there anything else that you would like us to know about kind of where you're moving forward or part of your message?
Well, the other thing to think about, which, at the time didn't even think about it till days and weeks later, after a situation like this where you lose a child or something traumatic happens, there is grief and guilt and blame and shame. And so it went from, okay, this is an event, terrible, tragic event with my son. And now it's encompassed the family to where, this huge emotional energy that I'm exerting, now I'm working to keep the family intact, because one of the worst things we can do is start to point fingers and say, it's your fault. There's blame there, or anything else where we're tearing down the family or turning away from each other. I know about a month back, I got to the point where I was a little bit put out, because I'm like, okay, I have a plan. I'm moving forward. I've made something of this, and I've kind of moved forward in my grief. Whereas, other members of the family, they were in different levels of grief, and I was getting upset and frustrated. Like, no, we're done with that part. You're done with the anger, or you're done with the blame, or, feeling guilty. We're going to move forward. And that's not the case at all. I had to say, okay, I need to be respectful of wherever they are in their cycle, and just managing the family. That is huge. I mean, now you're not only dealing with the loss of a child, let's not lose the family.
And maintaining that connection and having patience with everyone's process. I think I told you I did hospice for 8 years. So recognizing everyone grieves differently and everyone's timeline for their grief is different. And or even like you say, the cycle of what you're going through at the time, can be really difficult, and making it all okay, right? Like, it's okay to be grieving. It's okay to be where you're at right now. I think that's really important too. And like you say, keeping those connections, because in my opinion, I think with the way our social media is and everything right now, we're just not as connected. It's easy for us to just look at someone's Facebook page rather than call them up and talk to them, and our families are going every which way with all these activities, but are we sitting down at dinner and saying, hey, how's your day been and what's going on in your life, kind of a thing?
Exactly. It's that human connection, not an electronic connection, human connection. It's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you so much. This has been such an amazing conversation. And if people want to know a little bit more about what you're doing, what's the best way for them to reach you?
They can go to my website, which is larkdeangalley.com. So LarkDeangalley, larkdeangalley.com. And I will actually put a link there that will give you free access to the Self-Reliance Module 1 about learning how to manage your own emotions and, take responsibility.
I love that. We're going to take another quick break, but when we get back, I have a little segment I call it the Words of Wisdom. And I just really feel like what I'm putting out in the world with interviewing people in health and wellness is to help people go home and use what they learned and just start doing something different. So when we get back, I'd love for you to share just a few things that you would give as like kind of a idea of how someone can start changing some of the things that they're doing in order to benefit their mental health.
Do you feel stressed, overweight, and unhappy? Are you tired of setting goals that you don't accomplish? Do you want more energy, motivation, and focus to create your dreams? Many people struggle to keep up the commitment, motivation, and confidence to be successful, to reach their goals and aspirations. They often let other things get in the way of their personal health and happiness. It doesn't have to be this way. You can change. Join us for a 6-week online health transformation workshop. Learn about the mind-body connection, overcome obstacles to health, create daily health rituals, get support from others like you, and change your life for good. Register now at flourishwellnessconsulting.com under online group workshops, or email Camille at flourishwellnessconsulting.com. Our gift to you as a podcast listener is $50 off the transformation workshop. Use the promo code podcast50 when you register. This new year, make peace with your body and like who you are for good.
Welcome back, you guys, to Wellness Wisdom today. We're having an amazing conversation about really what I think is the foundation of all health, which is our mental health, the way we believe about ourselves, the way we see the world, the way we feel about others, how connected we are to others, our family, our friends. And I'm talking to Lark Dean Galley, who has her own business. She's been an amazing business owner for so many years, but she's taken a really pretty 360 twist in her business with a recent her son dying in after he killed himself in March of this year. So it's not been very many months. And so she's taken this twist. And Lark, I asked you if you would share with us a couple of words of wisdom that you would share with people that they can, maybe start just making a few changes in their life to support their emotional wellness as they go forward with. I'm sure a lot of people are concerned about themselves and their families.
Right. So the first thing I do in the morning is I spend probably 2 hours, and you don't have to do that much, start with 5 minutes, but get up a little bit earlier if you have to, spend a bit of time, just a couple minutes. If you want to meditate for a few minutes, I think about those things that are most important to me, my goals, think about my family, what I want and see for them. I take time to listen to some recordings I have of things that I want to see in my life and changes. And then I write out, my goals every day. And I write out how I want to see my life and that I empower, and I say good things to myself. I empower myself, and I'm a powerful person. And by writing these things out and by saying them, I'm spending time and I'm doing something like action, not just a little action. I'm taking like a lot of action because I want to make a difference. And it starts with empowering myself with good words. I listen to some kind of spiritually uplifting thing every day. I listen to some kind of mental training, whether it's business or just mindset, how to improve what I'm thinking or feeling, all of that. I do these things every day, just like we want to eat every day. I want to fill myself. And then I exercise every day. I think that's important, is to get some movement. Something I know I need to do more of that I've been missing out is I want to spend more time outside, not just inside all day. I think that's a factor for modern life. And then connecting with people, not just through Facebook, but actually talking to, I call my mom every few days, or, make sure that I touch base with my adult daughter who's not living at home. Then when my other daughter, who just graduated from high school, she's here, I might hear her in the other part of the house. I actively leave one room and I go into the other room. And if I can catch her before she leaves, back when she was in school or before work, just a touch point. Hi, hun, how you doing? 2 minutes. Mom, could you make me some eggs? Instead of saying, I don't have any time to make eggs. What is it going to take me? 5 minutes at the most, right? Mm-hmm. Take some time to in some way connect with the other people. Make sure I give my husband a kiss before he leaves for work, or if he's away on a business trip, touch base with him, check in with him for the day. Things don't have to take a lot of time, but it tells other people that you care, and it creates that human connection that we're missing in our lives right now.
Thank you so much. I think all of those are so powerful, and it's creating connection and helping us feel valued. I think about meditation. I use that a lot to connect to myself and my higher self, what my possibilities are. And then life vision, what you're talking about, the affirmations. I have an affirmation that says, I love myself. It simply says, I love myself. I love myself. I love myself, over and over again. And maybe if you're struggling with that, putting something like that, or I'm powerful, or I'm amazing, those kinds of words, it's like we're our own coach in our head, right? Telling ourselves the things we can do. Movement has a huge impact on people. I actually read this book called Spark, where it talks about how movement changes our brain. So if you want your brain chemistry to change and you want to feel an uplift in your mood, exercise is great. Getting outside. I use forest bathing in my retreats, where we actually go out and we do a meditation in the trees, and the trees have an energy that is amazing. So it's like that ionic exchange with the earth, and then connecting in person. And that's something that I know is, we actually have to make an effort now to do that a little bit more, right? With the way our world is. Everybody, I hope you can go home and maybe try out just one or two of these things that can help you improve your mental health, and know that you're valued, you're loved, and you're important. Whoever you are, whatever your beliefs are, we need you in the world. And thank you so much, Lark, for sharing your passion and what you're doing to bring this message out to people and make a difference in the world. Everybody, as you're listening to this, if you enjoy listening to it, please subscribe and continue to listen to all the amazing tips that we have for you on being mentally and physically well. And hopefully, as you guys do this, you can make peace with your bodies and like who you are. Take care, everybody.